Okay, so yeah, people tend to like the last Alphastrike video I did. So I've got an Alphastrike Tiger, and there's only one way I can think of topping what I did to the Wolf. Time to ultra. Okay, so disassembly of the Tiger. First thing that has to come off is the pump grip, and if I remember correctly, you should be able to just lever it with a screwdriver. I think, is it that way or that way? No, it's that way. It should just pop that. There we go. Right, so that's off, out of the way. And then we have these clips, and we have these clips. These clips are easy. You just put your screwdriver in behind it, lever it downwards, and it'll start to separate. Yeah, you can do that across the entirety of the blaster. And then with these, which I think the Wolf is all these, it's the orange piece there that you have to get loose. So you just, again, put your screwdriver behind it and just lever it out the way, and then it should pop open. It's easier if you do all the other shell clips first before you do that one there. So I'll do that now, and we'll have a look at the internals. Alright, so when you're taking the clips off the blaster, that one is problematic because it's at the bottom, and then there's this one here, which is actually hidden in the shell. Where's it gone? Just in there. So when you come to it, it's easier to turn it over to show you. See, just in there. So that one's troublesome. So the trick, what I do, take the pump grip off, do all the top ones, do this like row, then do that, and then do that one last. They are just plastic, so be careful, or as careful as you can. They will take a bit of abuse, but not too much. Anyway, that brings us nicely onto the internals. So we've got the pump bar, which, you know, it's fairly solid actually, but given what this blaster is, it's a fairly thick piece of plastic, and it's reinforced in places. So I mean, you know, that's not bad. That's got a return spring on it, which you've got to make sure goes back on. Smart AR, twin barrel, plunger, and then that's the actual prime, and then the catch, as with most Alphastrike, is built into the handle. So we won't do anything to that. It's a plastic spring like you'd find on a Jolt, but it's, you know, it's all moulded into the handle, so you can't really do anything about that. What we can do is we can improve this grip, we can improve the spring, and obviously this is gonna start, you know, gonna redo this to fire ultra. I've got my trusty 16mm pipe, and I've got to somehow fit 2 rows of that in there. I will need to widen these ever so slightly to take them, and I will need to take out dart pegs and things of that nature, which we'll move on to next. I will make a start on the plunger assembly. The bonus of, to be fair, most Alphastrike blasters is it's all self-contained to a degree. I mean, that's all one piece. That's your plunger, your smart AR, and your barrel, all in one part. Again, everything's clipped together, so be careful when you're levering these off, because the smart AR does come apart, which is nice because we can just work on that. And then you've also got these 2 little tabs down here. Again, screwdriver, gently lever them over the tab there, and it will pop. You might have to work it a little bit at a time. This is very prone to stress cracks, and that section across there will actually probably break if you're not careful. But as long as you're not putting too heavy a spring load in there, you should be okay. So what I'll do is I'll dig through my spring box, I'll get this off and the spring upgraded, and then we'll start taking the smart AR apart. Okay, so there are some very, very good tolerances in the factory. So we are getting a few stress marks just at where the welds are. I mean, you can just see where the plastic's slightly lighter on this side. I managed to not break it this time. The last time I tried one of these, I broke it. But yeah, so you be very, very careful. Take it steady. don't just rip it apart. I mean, when you put it back together, you could glue it, but just for extra reinforcement. But it's one of those where as long as you're not putting too big a spring load in there, it'll be fine. And then the entire plunger assembly, ta-da, and it's a nice old school solid plunger with, it'll only work one way up. So okay. One other question I had was, how do you take springs off? The easiest way, especially if it's a fixed plunger head, the easiest way is you've basically got to unthread it off the plunger rod, which basically means getting the end, hooking it off the plunger rod, and then just unscrewing it. So I'll get that started and you can see what that looks like. Right, it does take a bit of butchering, but you've basically got to uncoil that around the plunger rod. And then this one is particularly stubborn because for some reason it won't twist at this end, which is really annoying. And then you just got to work it off piece by piece. See how we're getting longer and longer. Two things to be wary of: one, sharp, and two, this will potentially knacker up your plunger rod, or even your plunger if you're not careful. So just be careful. This is probably one of the more difficult ones that I've ever had to do, I think, because it's such a narrow spring on such a fat plunger rod. So it's a bit of a pig compared to some, but just keep on twisting. The reinstallation of the new spring is basically the same in reverse. You've got to hook it on and then thread it. But the other thing to be wary of is with this spring in particular, oh God, crikey. If you ever wanted to reuse it, you're going to have to cut the end off, because it is now better than that. This is probably one of the harder springs that I think, because it's such a short plunger rod as well, and it's one of those ones where the spring goes into the plunger head. So okay, but anyway, now I'm going to go and find a spring that's the same length but slightly heavier. It's actually not a bad spring, but having done testing on one of these, it's about 70 FPS stock. So yeah, it's doing the old Nerf average, but we want slightly more because obviously we're firing a larger projectile through a larger opening. So ideally I want a slightly heavier spring just to push the air out a little harder. So we'll go into my spring box and find something. I think I've got like an 8K iron fire spring somewhere that might do this, but I'll see what I've got. It's going to be a case of I couldn't tell you what spring's going in there, but we'll find one anyway. Oh, yeah, there we go. Right, I've just found a 9K Falcon Fire spring, which will do quite well. It'll need cutting down a smidge because it is a bit longer, and I'd rather not put too much power under this. So we're going to cut down, got a couple of coils off the end of this. I think we need to take, yeah, I need to cut it about there-ish and then flatten that end. So yeah, so it won't be a full 9K spring. It'll probably be close to, yeah, there's maths involved, so it'll probably be an 8K or something. But that's for a project that I'm probably never going to finish. So we'll use it for this because I am going to do this one. So yeah, at least we know what spring will fit. It looks to be a similar diameter. So yeah, we'll trim that off, get it fitted, and then we'll start working on the AR. Right, so I've basically taken, well, the equivalent of 2-3 coils, 2.5 coils, something like that, off a 9K spring, good and firm. And now we'll thread it back on, and it's basically the reverse of how you take it off, but it's a little easier because you don't have to work the end around. So as you're threading it on, it should just snap straight back in. So again, sharp end, so be careful. I might flatten that off a little bit more. But yeah, so we'll get that installed. Alright, so I've installed the new spring, put that back in there. I should have greased it up, but I'm not worried about that at the moment. Now we move on to the Smart AR, and it's basically the same principle. 2 small little clips, just be very careful taking them apart. and beware that the ARs are going to spring at you. So I'm going to get that apart now. Same idea. You get your little screwdriver and just gently lever them up, take it apart, bit at a time, go slow, try not to break it. Okay, so there's your smart AR. You got your two air restrictors, your springs, and then your barrels. What we're going to do is we're going to stand up. Right. We're basically going to cut this off across there to make room for the new one, and we're going to drill the dart posts out first. So, because we want the right, this is where it gets confusing. There are some that suggest to take all of that out, just clip it out and hope that that stays in place. Now I don't want to do that because it leads to these getting jammed, I find, if you start doing that. So if you drill through the center of the three spoke bit, if you drill through the center of that, then the dart post should twist out a lot easier and it should come out all in one go. And then it still leaves you with the guides for this to be intact, because I still want this to have a working smart AR. The only thing I want to do is change the barrel. So we're going to take the dart posts out, because otherwise we're going to end up cutting through the dart posts as we're doing this. So we'll do that. There are steps, and I'm not wording it very well, but take the dart posts out before you cut the barrel off. Yeah. Alright, so rather frustratingly, the dart pegs are snapping off as I try and twist them out. So what we'll do is we'll just be very careful with the hacksaw. The idea here is that where this lip is, that's where you are taking your hacksaw to, and you're cutting it just flush basically with the base plate, so that we're just taking the whole barrel section off. Yeah, so that'll be the next thing to do, just gently take the hacksaw around there and take the barrel off the smart AR. Right, so that's been hacksawed off the base. We're going to file this flat, and then we're going to cut this to length, same length, because it'll do. So next time you see it, that and that, well, no, I need to do something to this to make it fit, but this will be flat and that'll be cut. Okay, so the new problem is that the new barrel material is a lot fatter than the old barrel material, so it doesn't quite fit on there. So what I need to do, where I've got these lines, I will basically I'll sand this edge flat as much as I can in order to put them up to one another. So we'll crack the Dremel out and do that. The principle is the same as the X-Shot kickback that I've done. Basically change the barrel for this material. You do need to Dremel out part of the shell for it to fit. I have managed to break one of the clips on the AR, but there we go. So hopefully this should work now. I'm hoping that the darts are long enough to force the ARs out of the way. So now we'll reassemble and try it. Right, so you have to trim the shell there and there to get it to fit, and I'll be brutally honest, I'll be amazed if these leave the barrel, but we're going to try it anyway. So I'm going to reassemble it and then we'll do a test fire. Well folks, I genuinely can't believe I'm saying this, but may I present to you the world's first Smart AR Ultra Blaster. It only works. I'm amazed. It's hitting an average of like 70 FPS, which I'll take that. I will take that, given how rough this was thrown together. The first ever Smart AR Ultra Blaster, and it's an Alphastrike. Right, well, now we do cosmetics, and that basically means paint job, and then grip. But yeah, that's astonishing. I cannot believe that that actually fires. Yes, it's probably no better than it would have been stock, but it's firing ultra, so yeah, you've got to laugh at that. I can't believe. I mean, you look down there at how close and tight those barrels are, and I was like, I don't think that's going to clear the end, and it did. I surprised myself, but yes, right, paintwork. Right, so while the primer's drying, I'm going to do something about this grip. The trigger is terrible. It goes up like that, and that just digs into your finger all wrong. But the grip is just awful as a result. Doesn't help. So what we do is we take a piece of foam, we cut strips out of the foam, we fill the gaps with the foam, shape them slightly, and then we just wrap the whole thing in black electrical tape. Yep, that's it. You just need a board to cut the foam on, piece of foam, straight edge, tape, knife, that's it. And it will make this thing like 50% better, which is better than what it is. So gonna get that done now while the paint's drying. Just a quick advisory on the paint. I'm not, this is just ridiculous, so I'm not doing a good paint job. I'm not planning on taking my time. So far it's got the primer on it and it's been all of 5 minutes, so I'll probably run out there once I've done this, put the top coat on and call it good. I don't care if it looks awful. It'll look alright from like 20 feet. So, but yeah, we'll work on the grip now. You only really need, that line there is about where you need to come up to. So yeah, we'll just fill all these gaps and then wrap it in electrical tape. We will do that now, and I'll show you the result. Right, so I've filled it with the foam. It's just basically one of these standard play mats. It happens to be just the right thickness, I find anyway. So you just cut it to fit the size, squish it in, trim it up, and now you're just wrapping constantly. So yeah, it doesn't have to be neat because you won't see it. Okay, so that's that taken care of. It literally just improves the feel of it drastically. If you wanted to, a good one would be some kind of sports grip, like for a tennis racket. That works quite well because that's slightly spongy as well. But you do still need to put the foam in between the fins, but that improves that grip immensely. Nothing we can do about the trigger, but what can you? It's a cheap budget line, which is why I'm doing a cheap budget mod. There we are. Okay, so now the grip is complete and the AR is complete and everything is complete. I've just got to finish the paintwork, and then the next time you see it, it will all be bolted together and finished. Right. Well, there it is. I didn't wait for the paint to dry. I can't be bothered. This is ridiculous. It has no right to exist. So, of course, I'm not going to do a great job. I haven't even closed it properly. But yeah, I suppose I better go and do a firing demo. Yeah, painted on both sides though. But yeah, that's awful and hilarious. And done. Well, this is officially one of the worst things I've ever created. The paint is already scraping off. It's stupid. But we'll do a firing test anyway. Shed is 35 feet away. I do have a tailwind, so if I can hit that, we're laughing. Just using the standard black and orange ultra darts, because I can't get any others in the UK. Added wheelie bin. Can we see that in the shot? Yeah. Let's go this side. Yeah, let's go this side for a change. Right, shed 35 feet. That was actually fairly straight. Oh, the return spring doesn't work anymore because of the paint. 2 for 2. I'm firing this from the hip as well, so. But yeah. I'm going to take a stab at this. I'll clear 40 foot, but it's not much good for anything else. The loading is a fiddle. I mean, this blaster anyway, the loading is a fiddle, but with the slightly fatter ultra darts, it's even worse. Last two. So yeah, there you go. The Alphastrike Tiger thing that's god awful and hilarious at the same time. It has no right to exist. Nobody asked for this. Right, speak to you next time.